Hi everyone, my name is Giovanni Hermes, and our group today is the elite group, and we are going to be presenting on the topic of Nessus, Nessus vulnerability scanner. And so part of the group is going to be Brandon Del Porto, Marcus Noel, Prashantis Goda, and Andrew White. And as far as the introduction, before we jump into Nessus, I'd like to cover a few items. And so what exactly is a vulnerability? And that is any weakness that can potentially be exploited. Some examples of these vulnerabilities would be outdated software, weak passwords. And so we move forward to what exactly is a vulnerability scanner. And so it's a tool that basically monitors and scans applications on the network to identify these vulnerabilities. The one we are using today is called Nessus. Another example is OpenBoss, and etc. And so the reason it's really important to have a tool like this is humans in general are the weakest link in preventing cyber attacks. And the reason for that is a lot of people are not really trained into what to look for, or even if they are, we tend to still make the mistakes that allow hackers into the system. And so basically having a vulnerability scanner will help you protect the devices and securing them. But humans are still at risk because we are always susceptible to social engineering. And so moving forward onto what is Nessus used for, like I mentioned before, it's a security scanning tool that scans a computer, and it'll raise an alert if it discovers any vulnerability that an attacker or a hacker can use to exploit the system. And so you definitely want it in your organization because it reduces the attack surface and ensures compliance. What's awesome about Nessus is it's the only tool that checks computers, but it does not actively prevent these attacks. And so it's definitely good to use as an information tool. You'll see it used by administrators to keep their domains free of these vulnerabilities that the hackers and viruses commonly exploit. And so you can also use this to scan local or remote devices. And so that's it for my portion. I'll let Andrew White take over on to the next slides.
Thanks, Giovanni. So I'm going to talk about why using Nessus and the initial download. So Nessus Essentials is a free open source software. Anyone that works from home, you can download it and you can scan up to 16 devices that are actually on your home network. Nessus Essentials is free, so no matter how many employees you have, anyone can download it as long as they're running Linux or a Windows machine. Some of the key takeaways about Nessus, it does not make any assumptions on a configuration on your network. So big thing with cybersecurity is that assumptions can lead to misled vulnerabilities. So Nessus has that covered. The other thing it does is Tebable, the company that makes it, they provide constant updates for new vulnerabilities that are found to help minimize zero-day attacks. And finally, it has a patching assistance, so any vulnerability that it does find, it will provide you the best remedy to go ahead and fix that vulnerability. So to download it, we're going to use our Kali Linux virtual machine. You're going to go ahead and open up Firefox in your Kali VM. You're going to go ahead and navigate to the link provided there at tenable.com. On the initial page, you're just going to fill out the information, basic info to go ahead and register it. Key takeaway, make sure that you actually put a valid email address in there because they will send you an activation code when it comes time to register your Nessus software. After you do that, staying in Firefox there, you're going to go to the downloads page of Nessus and make sure that you pick the right version for your OS. Whether you're running a 32-bit or 64-bit Windows, or in our case here, running Kali 2020, we want to make sure we go ahead and get the Debian 64-bit version. That wraps up my portion. Now Prashant is going to go ahead and talk about installing Nessus and doing the initial configuration.
Thanks, Andrew. I will be picking up where Andrew left off. Remember, guys, you can install Nessus both on Windows environment and Linux environment. So I will, however, be talking about the Linux environment. Whenever you download an ISO file, Your default download folder would be root downloads, but you can always change the destination folder. But just make sure whenever you go up, open up your terminal and log in as a root, make sure to be in the right directory before you start installing or unpacking your ISO file. And it's always a good idea to verify your file is actually in the directory. You can use ls command, basic Linux command. Once you do that, you can run the command dpkg /i nessus. It will, and once you hit tab, it will complete the rest of the command for you, for the including the ISO file for Debian AMD64. Once you hit enter, it will start unpacking and installing the Nessus on your Kali Linux. Once, depending on your internet speed, it will take a couple of minutes to install it. Once it's installed, you can actually use two basic commands to check the status and whether it started or not. We have provided those two commands here. You have make sure you have the administrative rights, or you are the root user. So sudo service nessus SD start. That will actually show you if it started or not, like it's shown here in the screenshot we have. And the status, it will show it's active or not. It will actually give you the process ID, task, memory it's using, and all sorts of good information here. All right, so initial configuration, guys. Usually it's Firefox is the default browser for your Kali Linux. Whenever you go to Firefox and navigate to the Nessus web interface through the localhost 8834 port, Nessus operates on port 8834. You'll actually be greeted with the warning page uh, saying it's an untrusted site. If you want to continue or not, just accept and proceed, and follow the prompts for the rest of the configuration. Pick Nessus Essential, that's the free version for you. The Nessus Pro, it's actually, you gotta buy it. So Nessus Essential, it's free for you for a week once you provide the proper credentials. Just hit escape whenever it asks for you for the activation code. And once you provide for the registration email, they will provide you with the activation code. And once you go back to your email and follow the link to register Nessus using the activation code provided to you by Nessus, you will actually then get to create your user account and password. And you can actually log in and start using the Nessus interface. And you can start scanning your range of IP addresses, whatever you want or whatever you choose to go with. So how to actually start a scan and analyze the results is gonna be presented by Marcus. Marcus, go
Hey,
ahead.
thank you, Prashant. As Prashant said, I'm gonna be talking about like the scanning portion, and then what's the most important phase in using Nessus is like the scanning portion. To do a scan on Nessus, you just literally it's self-explanatory. You just go to the scan, and then let's say if you are scanned before, you see under my scan. So since not like the first time you're performing a scan, you're just gonna create a new scan, and then this window will pop up where you have to put the name of the scan you're running, and then the description of the scan, and then where you want to save the scan, and the target. And then one of the thing about like scanning, there is two type of scan. There is like a credentials one, there is like a non-credential. The difference between the two, like with the credential one, you have to put an actual password and then the username. And then with that one, you have less false negative. And then with the other one, it's just basic scanning. Once you put all this info, like the target, and then you click save, and then you scroll down at the bottom of the page, you're gonna see a button that says start, and then you click on the start. And then depends on your internet, the scan might run up to like 15 to 20 minutes, and then depends like not only your internet speed, also how many vulnerabilities that you have on the computer. And then after the scan running, and then one thing about Nessus that make Nessus even cool, so it gives you the vulnerabilities based on like color. For example, if like a vulnerability is critical, it's just gonna give you like in red. And then if it's not critical but it's high enough, it's just gonna be in orange. And then if it's like a medium vulnerability, it's gonna be in yellow. And then low gonna be in green. And then if just like information, it's just gonna be in blue. Once you run, for example, you can see we run our target was like IP address, which was like 10.0.2.5. And then when we run a scanning on this computer, it comes out to have like 72 vulnerabilities, which was like 9 of them was critical, 7 was like high, but not like critical, and then 30 was medium, and then 6 was like really low, and then 132 information. And yes, and then once the vulnerability, and then you just click on the name of the vulnerability, it's just gonna give you the name, and then it's just gonna give you like the family where it belongs to and how many of that vulnerability that exists on your computer. And yeah, basically that's it. And then now I'm gonna pass you over to Brendan, that's gonna talk about like how the software, and then that will conclude for us. Brendan.
All right, thank you, Marcus. So this is an example of one of the pop-out windows that you can get from Nessus by clicking on a vulnerability. In this case, it's outdated software on our target, which is Meta 2 in this example. And it provides an insight on why the vulnerability is a security risk. And it also gives you a potential solution. In this case, it'd be upgrading the operating system version. And it also has an output line, which tells you exactly what it detected that was a potential risk and how that can be resolved. Another example of a vulnerability found on this scan was a weak password, and it gives you insight on how the attacker can use an exploit to discover this vulnerability. And the solution in this case would just be using a correct password policy. And the output line also gives you some insight onto what happened during the scan. In this case, the scan just used the password to log in, which was just password. And to wrap things up, here are some of our main takeaways from the presentation. Any business, large or small, is susceptible to cyber attacks and needs to plan accordingly. You can never assume your employees at home know the networks they're using and the devices and the security around them. Vulnerability scanners like Nessus can help mitigate the risk brought by these devices. And just using Nessus Essential, it's a free open source software usable on Linux or Windows. It does not make assumptions on your network configuration. It's continuously updated with new vulnerabilities. It's easy to use, and it also gives you potential solutions to the vulnerabilities, which would help a lot with your employees. And now I'm opening it up to any questions.